Jake, the power of the purse is designated to Congress. It's part of the separations of power in government. It allows, not one part of government to have too much authority. It's how you stop a dictatorship or you stop a king. How does Congress feel about Donald Trump trying to, I'll use the term impoundment, even though the White House says it's not impounding. Can you explain what that term is and tell me how Congress feels?
Well, you and Garrett both know my love for the United States Congress. I love Congress. I think it has an important responsibility. Congress has completely abdicated, Katie. Republicans in Congress, let me be clear, have completely abdicated their role as a separate, equal branch of government. Mike Johnson, we wrote a couple weeks ago in Punchbowl News, is basically conducting his job as Speaker of the House as an aide of sorts to Donald Trump. Congress has absolutely no views of its own and waits for Trump to say what he's going to say and to weigh in how he will weigh in. That is no way for Congress to act. I mean, Congress has, and this is a much longer discussion, which will bore your viewers, but Congress has abdicated a lot of responsibility and power over the years, but this is a whole new level. Now, impoundment is, the question is, can the White House, can the administration, can any White House or any administration impound, withhold money that Congress has already appropriated and presidents have signed into law? The answer to that broadly is no. But listen, Katie, you're going to have a OMB director, that's the Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought, who is, if confirmed, and we expect he will be confirmed, will test the outer limits of the law. He has said that. He does not have conventional views on the budgeting process. He said in his confirmation hearing, he was asked about that Impoundment Act, and he said President Trump ran against the Impoundment Act. Well, it's an interesting data point, Katie, but if the president doesn't like a law on the book, it's his responsibility to attempt, if he would like or she would like, to change said law, not to ignore it and said, I campaigned against it. That's not how our system of government works, although it might be how it works for the next 4 years. And furthermore, one more point here, you're just not, Katie, going to have a Congress that tests him with Republicans in the House, Republicans in the Senate, the majority in both chambers completely in debt and in awe, frankly, of Donald Trump. You're not going to have a legislative branch that stands up to Trump in any way.
Let me play that moment during the confirmation hearing for Russ Vought. This was Senator Patty Murray asking him whether he would enforce the Impoundment Act. And here, as you mentioned, here's what he said.
Will you, if confirmed, ask Director, faithfully follow the law, the Impoundment Control Act, yes or no?
Senator, we will faithfully uphold the law. The president ran on the notion that the Impoundment Control Act is unconstitutional. I agree with that.
Has the impoundment law ever been said to be unconstitutional by a court of law?
Not to my knowledge,
It
Senator,
has
no.
not. So it is the law of the land. I don't care what the president said when he was running. It is the law of the land.
Okay, hold on to that for 1 second. Garrett, you've got a statement from the White House on Medicaid.
Katie, you ask, we answer. The press secretary has just put out a statement on this saying that the White House is aware of these reports that the portals are down, but they say that payments are not affected. They're still being processed and sent, and that they expect the portal will be back online shortly. So they view this as unrelated to the spending pause.
I should say hi to everybody at the White House who's watching right now, and thank you for getting us that answer. All right, Lisa, let's talk about impoundment. Let's talk about what Russ Vought told Senator Patty Murray, what Jake was talking about. This seems like something... I mean, we might have thought that trying to overturn birthright citizenship would be first up for the Supreme Court. Seems like this might be first up for the Supreme Court.
It could be, but both share sort of a common DNA, which is that not only is it unconstitutional, but here you've got a statute that's being ignored, as well as constitutional text. You talked in the beginning about this is fundamental to our separation of powers. It's more than that. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the authority to appropriate money from the Treasury. That is a congressional responsibility and belongs only to the Congress. There's nowhere in Article 2, which is about the president, that says, you know what, he has a role here too. His role is solely with respect to vetoing acts of Congress when he can and when it's not overridden. This inherent authority over impoundment, which is what Russ Vought seems to be advocating, there is no constitutional text that would authorize that. They certainly will try to get the Supreme Court to endorse that, but there is no precedent in Supreme Court history that would give them reason to believe that that's where this court is going.
This is a Supreme Court, though, that has ruled in the past toward expanding executive authority.
Yes, and expanding executive authority all the way to the point where the president is immune for his unlawful actions while he is in office. And so this Supreme Court has given rise to what I'll call the elastic unitary presidency. The president has all powers, and he can sort of stretch the limits of what those powers are because he believes that there will be no consequences for him in doing so. Within the last 8 days, Katie, we've seen that theory being tested by him.
Jeremy?
Yeah, and stretch he will, right? I mean,
Right.
Trump has clearly embraced this view of the imperial presidency that, Richard Nixon and others saw themselves as having. I think Congress, in the kind of impotent stage that it has been in for the last decade or so, as Jake said, is going to be of no consequence to Trump and his desires to kind of flout the law and the letter of the Constitution as he sees fit. I think Congress, at least the Republican wing of it in the House and the Senate, has been completely cowed into submission by Trump, the political figure from whom they derive their political power and political relevance. So until, something miraculous happens and Trump somehow is no longer the popular figure that he is with the Republican voting base, I think you're going to see this kind of unitary executive act as it wishes to interpret the Constitution. One thing as a point of contrast to where other Republicans are actually standing up to their chief executive, something very interesting is happening in Florida right now, where the Republican legislature has told Ron DeSantis, no, we are not coming back to session on your terms. DeSantis had called a special legislative session, and they said, nope, we're not going to do that. You are encroaching too much on our powers as a legislative body. And we're not just going to hand that over
Why
to
do
you.
they feel empowered to do that? Is that because Donald Trump has defenestrated Ron DeSantis and they feel like he's weak and there's blood in the water?
I think that's absolutely it. I think because you have the Republican leadership in the state legislature there saying that it basically is acting with, I don't know if the consent of Trump is the right word, but in the spirit of Trumpism.
Huh. All right, I want to put up on our screen. This is some details of what OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, is asking for on the agencies that are currently having a pause, who knows for how long, in funding. This is school meals for low-income students, the WIC, nutrition program for pregnant women and infants, wildfire preparedness for the Department of the Interior. Don't need that. The Medicare Enrollment Assistance Program, USAID, foreign assistance, mine inspections, a reintegration program for homeless veterans. Garrett, is that all correct and up to date as we know it so far from the White House?
Well, conceptually, those are programs that could be affected, but the White House is trying to explain that they view this as pauses related to programs where they see things running afoul of these executive orders. So look at it through the lens of, DEI programs, for example. If they can go into one of those programs that you just put up on your screen and they find some kind of program that is spending money allocated to mine safety on, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, they want to see that paused. But they're trying to take some pains here, and I don't think they're doing a very good job of making it crystal clear that all of these programs are not put on pause, sort of pending proof that they're not spending money on this. It sort of works the other way. So I think we're going to have to see where the rubber meets the road on this, because the guidance they have put out is not clear, and it has created this enormous amount of confusion all around the country. At basically any agency that gets federal money, they're calling up their lobbyists and they're calling up the people that they know in Washington saying, what is going to happen to our checks to cover our rent and our payroll? And it's just not functionally clear right now.
Jake, is there any worry that maybe some of the folks that are affected by this are folks that voted Republicans into office, voted Donald Trump into office, and that there might be some blowback down the line?
Yup. I mean, listen, programs like LIHEAP, which is a subsidized home heating program, Republicans, Democrats from New England, from northern states, benefit from that. That has been a point of tension on Capitol Hill for some time, as Republicans have tried in the past to cut away on at programs like LIHEAP. I mean, it's an interesting contrast, Katie. I've been up here in Doral, Florida, at the House Republican Retreat for the last 2 days, and Republicans have been talking about how they've completely changed the face of the Republican Party. They're digging in deeper with constituencies they had never seen before, lower income, working class, all these other, groups that they had no success with in the past. Many people in many different groups benefit from government programs that they are trying to slash. And I just think, and remember, when they go in the next couple of weeks to craft a budget which will unlock this process to pass the tax cuts that Donald Trump wants, they're going to have to make tough decisions about what they are willing and unwilling to cut. And every Republican, save one, will need to sign on the dotted line and vote for that. That is where the rubber meets the road. Right now, they could say, oh, we don't know what this is going to impact. The White House is saying this, you're saying that. Okay, fine. But when the rubber meets the road in the next couple months, they are going to have to make a call whether they are comfortable cutting Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, LIHEAP, WIC, all these government programs, which, by the way, the administration has said they're not going to cut a number of these programs. But we'll see. This is a very complicated process, and it comes time where you have to put your name next to a vote.